This is a video for Art 313 for the project Clean Cut for setting up your artboards so that you got your crop marks and you're ready to go. So to get started, let's make sure our interface is all the same. Click on Essentials, Reset Essentials, and obviously first thing we want to do is create a new document, Command N, and make sure your profile is set to print. That'll change as we change things, it'll profile to custom, but if you set it to print to begin with, it sets some things up automatically so we don't have to set them. Units set to inches, orientation set to horizontal or landscape, and width set that to 22. And what that's doing for us is, so if you think about it, this project is 4 3/4 inches times 4, so that's 19 inches. So this 22 inches to 8 1/2, 11 sheets of paper side by side horizontally gives us 22 inches, which will fit nicely. The 19 will fit nicely onto that. Tell that OK. And we've got our artboard, and now that we're at least started, Command S, so we want to save this. You can give it the name, give it your last name, Clean Cut. Underscores are always a good idea, and _00. It's a good habit to be in to it's a good habit to use version numbers. So as you're working, you can get to a stage that you're happy with, but you want to do more. It's just always a good idea to just version up. So wherever you're going to work, you can create a new project folder and save it in there if you wish. If you're working at home and you don't have CS6 and you're setting this up at school, say, you have the option here to save this as CS5, 4, 3, etc. If you have CS6 or you're only going to be working on this at school, then it doesn't matter, you can leave it at CS6 and tell that OK. So now we've got our document saved, and so the next thing we want is we want our 4 panels. Actually, what should we do first? Let's go ahead, and you're going to need 2 artboards, front and back. So this is artboards right here. Illustrator used to only ever have 1 page or 1 artboard, so this is relatively new, CS4, maybe CS3, but I think it was CS4 when these came in. Because Illustrator traditionally was thought of as, this is where you create your artwork and then you drop it in to another program like QuarkXPress or InDesign. So hit New Artboard, so you can see it popped up a new artboard right there. And this is up to you. I'm going to rearrange this. This is Menu, Rearrange Artboards. I'm going to set this to arrange in a stack. Tell it OK. We have our 2 artboards for front and back, or inside and outside. And down here you can see this tells you what artboard that you're actually working on. And you can also change artboards, or if you click, you see the black line around it, click, you see the black line around it, you know which artboard you're on. This will also, if you select through this, it'll fit it into your window. So, all right, we're set up with 2 artboards. Close that, and we need 4 panels, each panel 4 3/4 inches, at least for the cording fold. The gatefold's slightly different. Go over that in a separate video. And just grab your rectangle tool, and it doesn't matter, you create any size box because we're going to change it up here. 4.75, tab, 4.75, return, and last thing we want to do to this is make sure the stroke, if you click on your stroke panel, then expand show options and align stroke to inside. That's this button right here, align stroke to inside. And let's set our weight to 0.25. All right, so now we have our one panel, and double click the move tool, horizontal 4.75, vertically 0. So we're going to be moving this exactly the distance of its size, but we're going to make a copy of it. So now we've got two boxes, and I did this in class and did it in some of the other videos. Object, transform again. That's a good one to know, so I'm just going to use the key command, Command D and Command D. So now we have all four of our panels. Good time to save, Command S. Let's see now. Okay, so now we want crop marks on here. So when we print this thing out, we're going to know where to cut, especially since it's going to be tile. And we also want vertical lines at these points where it'll fold. So we have all of this selected. Go to Effect. Go to Effect, Crop Marks. Just thinking whether we should do this first or second. This is fine. So what that did was it just went through and obviously created crop marks for each box. It even created it along here, which we don't need those. So go ahead, grab that and Object, Expand Appearance. Okay, and then select these in here and ungroup. And then select them again and hide selection. So now you can see the crop marks, and we're not going to need these. So let's go ahead, get rid of those, delete, 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 delete. And right now we have this, there's a line on top. It doesn't matter, you can leave it, but just so that you kind of know what's going on, the effect created a set of crop marks for each of our boxes, for each panel. So now we have our crop marks and we have the score or fold marks. And at this point we could set up just set up guides, but I think it's going to be easier. I think it's going to be easier to actually keep the boxes around and have those kind of sitting down below as a template. And you're also welcome to set up guides as you need them and possibly do that on its own layer. So go ahead and show all. And now we have our boxes back, and that was the last thing I needed you to do, is select all this and group it, Command G. So now it's a group, and hit Command 0, make sure this is here, and then set this, your align to selection or key object or artboard, set this align to artboard, center, center. So you're now centered, you've centered this on the page all around. And then we need one more of these. Command copy. And we want to go to artboard 2. And just click once so that that's deselected. And Command paste. Command V. And when you have an artboard fitted into your window and you paste, it defaults to pasting it into the center. But sometimes it can be a little bit off, so just to make sure, you can hit the horizontal center align and vertical align center to just to make sure that that's in the center. So, and now Command 0, Command minus. Actually, I think there's probably a command for that. Fit all in window. There we go. So now we have the 4-panel fold set up, crop marks and fold marks, and the last thing you want to do is set this to template, and that'll lock it. And but still, also, if you when you switch to view outline in outline mode, it's still visible. Okay. The last thing I'll say here, that you're all set up, you're all ready to go. The last thing I'll say is you're welcome to just work in this document completely for the entire project. But if you want to break this down, it's a good methodology to work in separate documents and then bring it into here, so that if you say you were doing capturing, say, the portraits of some main characters. So you might want to do one portrait in one document, one portrait in another document, and then bring that artwork into here, so that it can get really confusing really quick once you have just a ton of layers in here, and it just might help you to organize things. But again, that's preference. It's up to you. And this concludes setting up the document. This is a screen flow for Art 313 Project Clean Cut for setting up the accordion fold document, if you've chosen to go with an accordion fold. So we're on the same page. Go ahead and set your workspace to essentials, or reset essentials, and that way we're all looking the same. You want to create a new document, File New, or Command N. And if your profile is not set to print, go ahead and set that to print. That'll just set a few things up for us. When we change some stuff, that'll switch to custom. But start off with print, change your units to inches, orientation to horizontal, or landscape, and width to 22. And what that'll do is create obviously a document that's 8.5 inches by 22, and 22 is 2 times 11. So we're setting this up so it can be printed on 2 8.5 11 sheets side by side horizontally, because the project dimensions are 4 3/4 inches by 19 inches total, and so that'll fit nicely on here and leave a little bit of room for overlap when you print it. Tell that okay. And here we have our artboard, and I think we'll do this different than I did in the first video. We'll just go ahead and start setting up. What we need are the 4 panels, and you can drag a box, doesn't matter. Just grab the rectangle tool, make a box, and up here in your control panel, 4.75 by 4.75. And then you want to make sure, let's set this to 0.25 points. And then over here in stroke, show options. And we want to set this to align stroke to inside. And what that's doing is, well, that's pretty obvious what that's doing. But anyways, 4 points. So the stroke is on the inside, or it's centered, or it's on the outside. So we want it aligned inside, and set that to 0.25. Command 0, back out, close that. Okay, now we need a total of 4 of these. These are 4 3/4 inch panels. And a quick and easy way to do that is double click the move tool, and in the horizontal move you want to put 4.75, leave vertical at 0, It doesn't matter if preview's on or not, and then tell it copy. And now you've got 2 of them. And object transform again, which is Command D. So now we've got all 4 of our boxes. Okay, so next step, this is the step that's slightly different than the other one, is we actually need this panel and this panel to be a little bit shorter than the other ones. In the accordion fold, they should be equal. In the gatefold, because this is going to fold in, you need that extra room right in here so that it doesn't buckle. And I haven't put together one. It all depends on paper. So you may have to print this out and do some experimenting. And I mean, I could compensate for that and make it give you a larger gap in here. In general, it's somewhere around 1/16 of an inch. And right now, you're defaulting, if we use the arrow keys to nudge, you're defaulting to 1 point, and 4 points is approximately 1/16 of an inch. So it's a little less, so we're going to go with that. So get your direct select tool and select these 2 points, so only these 2 points are selected, not these, and just hit your right arrow key 1, 2, 3, 4 times, and then over here, left arrow key 1, 2, 3, 4. Okay, and at some point I should probably test this and make sure that's enough in there. 1/16 of an inch, 1/16. That gives a total of 1/8 across here. So the bigger you make it, the more of a gap you get in here. So, you know, somewhere around 1/16, maybe a little more, maybe a total of 6 points as opposed to 4 points. We're going to try this though. Okay. So the next thing we want to do is select all these and run an effect on it. The effect is crop marks. So now it just popped crop marks on every single box, including we have extra crop marks here and here because it cropped this box and this box just like it would these. If I hide this, you can see. Oh, it's all one group now. Okay, well, you'll see that in a moment. Okay, so next step is while this is grouped like this, let's go ahead and group all of it. Group it. And you want to make sure your line is set to artboard. Align and align, so it's perfectly centered now. And then we can ungroup it. Now select all of them in Object, Expand Appearance. Because that was an effect, when we expand appearance, then we have access to all the objects that were made by the effect. And each one of these had an effect on it, and it's grouped. So what we want to do is select all of them and ungroup. So yeah, I know there's a lot of grouping and ungrouping going on. And for the nonce, we'll go ahead and hide this. Okay, now you can actually see the crop marks that it made for each box. We don't need these horizontal ones, so go ahead and select that and delete them. All right, and we don't need to get rid of these. There's overlaps right here because it made one for each box on either side, but just for the sake of demonstrating what that filter effect did, we'll get rid of these. If you don't do it, it's not going to hurt anything. It's just cleanliness. Okay, and now we're all set. As you can see, we have crop marks, and then these will be the score lines or the fold lines. If this were going to press, we would need to know where to set up the score lines. However, you'll be working closely with a printer. on a job like this, and they would actually give you exact dimensions, and they would have their own setup, so they might actually do this work. But for you, while you're designing it, you kind of need to know where your folds are, so you can make adjustments based on that. Object show all, that brings our boxes back. All right, I have a little tickle in my throat. Okay, so almost done. Last thing we need to do is, here's your artboard panel. So we have one artboard, and we're gonna make a duplicate of this, and it's very easy. Illustrator used to not have artboards. It used to just, multiple I should say, it used to just have one artboard, and you created your art, and then you dropped that art into, you took it into QuarkXPress or InDesign or Dreamweaver, or even into Photoshop. It left Illustrator. Illustrator was really only used if you were doing like a one-off piece, like a postcard or a poster. You could do everything you wanted in Illustrator, but in general, if you have a lot of text type to set, or if there's a complicated piece that's bringing together photography, logos, various sorts of graphics created in Illustrator, the normal working methodology is to do your art in this program in Illustrator and bring it into another program like InDesign or QuarkXPress. So in this case though, we just have front back, and we have the artboards now, so we'll go ahead and use that to help us out. So you can just open this artboards panel over here and drag that down, and that's going to give us a duplicate. And if we can shut this, if we zoom out, spacebar, Command Option, you see it made a duplicate artboard. And you could leave it like this, or you can arrange it, rearrange your artboard so that it's stacked up and down. What do they call it? Arranged by column. Just this makes it so it's stacked. So tell it OK. Now this is stacked. And artboards they don't have to be identical sizes. For a long time, InDesign and QuarkXPress, because they're page layout programs, you couldn't change page sizes, and I think that's a good thing. And now I think you can change page sizes even in InDesign. Anyways, these artboards, they don't need to be the same size. In this case, we're using them the same size. And this is how you navigate your artboards. Either here, you can double click, or double click, or if that's closed, down here, this is telling you what artboard you're actually on. If you click the arrow, now you're on artboard 1, and it also does a fit and frame for you. And if you want to see all of them, you can also view fit all in window. Okay, so your document's all set up. Last thing you need to do is Command Save, and you're going to want to name it your last name, Clean Cut, and give it a version number. Start with 00. It's always a good idea. It's always a good idea to keep versioning as you work, so that you're not just in one document always working. You kind of get to a point, you say, okay, that's pretty good, then save that document, and then go save as, and then just come in here and version up. How much you should version up is up to you, but it's a good idea. Disk space is relatively cheap these days. This allows you a certain amount of backing up as well, but it also allows you to easily go back to a version that you thought was better. And that brings me to my last point. You can do all your work in this document. Actually, I'm going to name this. You name it for your. I'm going to name this gate. Fold. Okay. This brings me to my last point. Is if you're comfortable in Illustrator and you just want to work in this document and create layers, you know, maybe this is a certain graphic layer, and then maybe this is your this is your background layer. This is your um, some artwork on here, maybe your text. If you're comfortable, that's fine. One way that you can approach this project, if you've got a lot of complicated pieces, you could do those pieces in another document, right? Command new and say we choose that. Now I have this new document and I go in here and whatever it is I'm doing, and say this has multiple pieces of artwork going on. You know, so say you're doing something really complicated and you just don't want to mess around with this other document. You can work in a separate document, and then when you're ready, just duplicate that layer over to the other document, or copy and paste. All right, let's close that, don't save. And I did have one last point. This layer is now essentially a template. Once we turn it into template, it won't print. So at the time that you print this, you'll need to untemplate it and possibly get rid of the boxes. But while you work, it's good to know where all this stuff is. So, but go ahead and set that to template, and that's it. You're done. You're ready to work.